And good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jet Radio 1400. I am Alan Carpenter. This is the half hour we spend with Josh Skarzinski. Let me get that out. Well, my tongue's still working, at least semi-working. Josh, when I was thinking about what Foo Fighters song to open with today and how I would tie it into planting, I thought, DOA would be a good one because after 2 days of 90-degree heat, you don't want your plants to be DOA.
I was driving by on the way here, a couple of our serviced restaurants, scratching in my head going, oh, did the front of the house, did the hostesses water? Because I know what this takes. And it only takes just, maybe 1 or 2 days of proper thorough watering to get it over this, because we're going right back to, I was shocked this morning, although it was 4-something in the morning, that 3 or 4 next days, we have a day that the low is 54. That's like April.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah. So,
and if it's bad for us human beings, where we spend a lot of time in air conditioning, or we're inside when the furnace is going, or we can wear a heavier jacket or whatever, think about a plant. A plant's just out there going, unless you're putting some black plastic on it or mulch or something, it's going, I'm just here dealing with the elements.
So I'll just finish that whole point off with how it should be done.
Yes.
So the one thing that is a misconception when you have in the garden plants, especially now that we've had a few weeks for that material to start to put those little white root hairs out, to start really, getting a root system going, that I see some people on the street, that like run the lawn sprinkler over top at 7 p.m. for an hour and a half every single night. That's not what you want. That's loving them to death. That leaves it wet for a long period of time. Generally speaking, earth and ground that you farm in or whatever, it's to the devices of Mother Nature. So you don't see like the commercial farmers out there running water 2 hours every single night. And I have a belief that the thought of when to water and how to water was something that has happened in the garden industry for years and years. And that is, things like rocks in the bottom of the pot. Like that came from, I won't jump ship. That came from times gone by. So watering in the evening, I believe, came from when the vast majority of us in more rural, more spaced out, not so much cul-de-sac, door-to-door kind of living that we have more prevalent now, was everybody was on a well. So they wanted to water the garden with that water in the well after everybody, they ate dinner, did the dishes, took their shower. Now it has all night to recover. So a lot of people have evolved over the years because my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my father, you always used to go out there and water at 8 o'clock at night. I think that was an evolution, that's just my guess, of having well-driven water sources, which we don't have anymore. We as spoiled Erieites now have a great water system that you just turn on the spigot and you get water all the time, no matter what. So the ideal thing to do with water is to make sure that plant is thoroughly watered. Now I'm referring to the garden in the earth, thoroughly watered when we have hot, dry time like this, as infrequent as you can without showing major stress. So if it's 8 o'clock at night and you see a little bit of wilt on your tomato, chances are it's going to totally recover. And if it's cooler or not so sunny the next day, let it be. I kind of want you to think in the vegetable garden as kind of like a spoiled teenager. If you give a teenager $100 every day, chances of them being self-sufficient financially and going out and getting their own and being a go-getter are probably slim. Now, if you're that teenager, I'm sorry, I'm not stereotyping. I'm just using that as an analogy.
Especially if you bought crypto with that $100 a day. Oh boy!
Today, you better go get a job because I follow crypto.
Yes.
So the container growing and the earth and garden growing are two totally different facets of growing, two different styles of water, fertilizer. Everything is different when you put it in a container. And I know some people, whether they're new to gardening or whether they just hadn't container garden, they'd always farm garden, or vice versa. That's kind of a new concept or different concept. Whenever you put sides and a bottom on a container, it just does not, it is not the same as Mother Nature's seemingly endless earth and water table, that things, capillary action and the wick action of moisture in the soil, the actual composition of earth and soil. People like to use the word dirt. You'll never hear me use that unless it's under my fingernails. But if we're to a better example, to call it dirt, the stuff that you plant, in your garden, in your backyard, topsoil, is generally different than what you see in a container, and it has to be. There's two different structures to that. So when we're talking about the garden and how to water, when to water, it is not. And I know there's going to be people driving, if there is anyone that listens to us, shaking their head going, no.
And knows how to drive.
You're not right. You're not right. I water my garden religiously for 45 minutes at 7:35 every single day.
Yeah.
But there's a whole list of reasons. So many I can't even get through with them in the 26 minutes we have left. That it causes problems. So if you can get away from the $100 a day spoiled teenager mentality and let it fight for it a little bit, later on, I promise you that you see great results when you water like crazy, especially if you see a lot of heat early on and they grow quick and they look healthy and you're like, I'm doing a great job. But then what you don't see is underneath. And later on in the season, once you start getting lots of tomatoes on that cherry tomato and you start seeing, a whole bunch of plant on top of a little tiny root, you can't see that. Then you start seeing, well, how come I have blight? How come all my tomatoes split like almost every time?
Yeah.
How come this? How come that? And that's because of all the watering early. So don't make the mistake of just because it got hot and dry. If what you're seeing is not showing stress, it might have a very vigorous root system that's pulling that moisture that's down underneath. Even take the time to bend over between your rows and dig down a little bit. And I think you'll be surprised, even on a 100-degree day, it only takes like 2.5 inches, and all of a sudden you're like, ooh, there's moisture down there.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
When I used to rototill for my dad, the top of the soil sometimes would look like, the crust of the moon.
Yeah.
Like nothing can be living under this. And as soon as you started to till it, you would see this rich, dark earth coming up that's clearly got enough moisture for those roots to grow.
So the idea to making good, strong plants later on in the season is to let them get down into that. Then they become more self-sufficient. So sometimes I had a customer, hopefully they're listening, that called me not with a complaint, but looking for advice. Like, I watered my fuchsia about 3 hours ago, and it's still wilting, but I just watered it a couple hours ago. So we went through the whole scenario and determined that if this customer had properly, thoroughly watered the plant so that it saturated it. Like the kind of watering where you would put it into a 5-gallon bucket and wait for it to quit bubbling.
Yes.
Totally saturated that at, she said, 6 in the morning. And it's, 9 or 10 in the morning, and you're seeing a large wilt to the plant that had not recovered yet. It's possible that plant is just not capable of pulling up the moisture it needs fast enough in 100 degrees. And we realized that it was getting quite a bit of morning sun, which is typically, from your professional, will tell you, morning sun, low angle of incidence sun is fine for a fuchsia, but it had wilted very badly overnight, and it wasn't able to recover because it got that morning sun. The reason I tell this story is if you have a plant that it is breezy, it is literally 101 degrees at the surface of the moon as you put the garden space, and your tomatoes wilting a little bit, pouring water on the bottom might not be the answer because there's moisture there. Right. It's just not able through its vascular system, which is called phloem. There, I always try to.
Oh, I like that.
So phloem,
I remember that one.
Phloem, and I'm many years from college, so don't hate mail me if I spelled it wrong or whatever. But that is the circulatory system of moisture that moves the water up. That system is just not capable of pulling and distributing water fast enough to keep the plant hydrated when it's losing it at a larger volume than that root system can soak it up. So when you put something in a hanging basket, it's confining all that root system to that particular. So now it's expected to be in morning sun and catch up by rehydrating the plant. So kind of just take stock, like, oh, this plant's pretty well rooted. I've had it in for 3 weeks, but look, it's windy and it's 100 degrees here, and I know there's moisture in the ground, but it's still wilting. It may just not be. It may not be able to keep up. So just kind of have to take an assessment in where that plant is for moisture consumption. Let's switch gears to your containers, because we kind of talked about a fuchsia to hanging basket, that it has that potting soil. That potting soil is designed, it is created to hold air, nutrition, and moisture. I've used the analogy of a dish sponge and soap many, many times. When you put the sides and the bottom on that, it changes the whole dynamic of how water moves. Therefore, we try to keep that oxygen and that airification and that distribution of water and nutrition very, very mobile. So in order for that plant to thrive, it needs to be thoroughly watered.
Right.
So sometimes when I teach, let's say, use the restaurants analogy, because we do help out, service, and provide for a host of restaurants in the Erie area, in New York, and everything. If you don't thoroughly water that plant, it takes and becomes a little bit of hydrophobic, if you will. It becomes like a very, very dry sponge. So when you try to wet it, it takes a little bit. So when you decide, okay, this container is a little on the light side, maybe it's showing a little bit of stress, I need to water thoroughly. Drown it. I'm afraid of overwatering. The act of overwatering is not watering too thoroughly at that instant. It's watering too frequently. So like back to the earth and gardening, if you go out there and you run the lawn sprinkler every single day, 1 hour, every evening, it doesn't need that. Mother Nature doesn't do that.
Right.
Typically. You'll get the week in Erie where it rains every day.
Well, sure.
And that's where we all start complaining about wet feet, and it causes problems.
Yes.
So the act of overwatering is not watering too thoroughly. It's watering too frequently. Oh, I water at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. every single day. Whoa, did it need that? Well, it was kind of cloudy the last 5 days. That's not what it needs. Assess the plant, hanging basket, window box, whatever it is that's growing in potting soil, the stuff for containers, by weight, and pick it up. Pick up the hanging basket, physically touch it and see it. And I'm like, oh, that's got some weight to it. I'm going to water it tomorrow morning, because that oxygen, that open air, that space, we don't want that plant's root system to be, in essence, holding its breath all season long. So you want to water thoroughly, like I said, like a 5-gallon bucket until it quits bubbling, kind of saturation, until you have that fully weighted plant, and then wait again until it starts to show a light stress or is light again. Then that's the point of water. So water when the plant needs it, not to your calendar. A lot of people tell me, oh, I water every day, or I water Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like, never to your calendar, always to the weight, because the weather changes, obviously. It's supposed to have lows of 55 the next 3 days. You might not have to water every single day. The last 2 or 3 days, you might have to water twice that day. Water to the plant's need, not to the calendar. Water to the weather, and it's acclimating to its environment. Now, the more as the season goes on, your container-grown stuff, the more you have to water. Say you have learned and you are watering appropriately. You're watering when you need to. But as the season goes on, the more times you water, the more times you need to make sure you're putting nutrition. So soap back in your sponge. So when it gets to the season, maybe we have 2 weeks of this, a little bit horrific, kind of hot, windy weather, direct sun, clear blue skies, then you have to water. Maybe there's a couple days you have to water twice a day to keep the plant hydrated so that they look like they're supposed to. The more times you water, the more times you need to make sure you're putting nutrition back in, because you're rinsing the soap out of the sponge.
Right.
Mic drop.
There you go. That's a good time for me to mention. Phone lines are open at 451-1400. Now we've gotten our really good
my monologue
mini course. That's a good mini course, though, on correct watering. What I was thinking during that insane weather for the past couple of days is guys like you and I are wearing hats and sunscreen. There's a reason.
Maybe you.
Yeah,
I've
there's
never
a reason
worn
why.
sunscreen in my life.
You never have.
Not a speck of it.
Well, that's true. You
may
are
succumb.
You are toner. That I'm pretty pasty, and there's a reason why I do wear it. But you do wear a hat, and there's a reason why.
Bald.
Out in the sun. And you're right. I didn't want to have to say it, but we both are. But let's talk about plants, because that kind of, you're out there in that extreme heat and that extreme sun, and there are plants that are probably okay in the midday sun on a regular day, but we're really suffering. And probably people are looking at them and misdiagnosing, what happened to my plant? That plant may have just been stressed by that weather.
Yeah, and now it changes gears and all of a sudden, whoa. You'll see that in certain plants. I can almost rattle off. Like, you'll see that heat stress in plants that just don't like it. Maybe like I have no issue with the heat and being in a greenhouse. Everybody's like, I can't take this. Like, I just grew up with it, so I've acclimated. bald and I believe I have Irish descent or whatever, and blue eyes and stuff. I seem to have evolved to being acclimated to it.
Yeah.
Not all plants are. So I would categorize you as a lobelia and me as like a purslane, which is in the succulent family. So plants like lobelia or bacopa or celosia, certain plants just show stress under high heat.
Right.
Even if they're in the proper location.
And they're healthy.
Even if they're healthy, they're going to show stress. Even the best of us succumb to some stress. So lobelia is one that just kind of, rattles off easily. Like it'll be used as an accompaniment or filler, spiller in amongst other things. And I commonly get the question, I've used this the last 3 years, but the pot that I put it in, it always looks horrible by first week of August, it looks horrible. And that's because it doesn't do well to midday heat stress.
Right.
So, and there's a host of plants like that. So that perfect plant for the perfect location, like the location thought process, I kind of harp on it with the landscape plants because I always kind of have a professional frustration I want to make sure that landscape plant is put in a location where your grandchildren don't have to rip it out. It should be properly placed. Annuals and window box stuff and things, even bedding plants that you plant in your foundation planting around the plant, around the house, should be put where they're in a position to thrive. So, but lobelia, for that example, I keep going to it because it's a good example. Doesn't do well next to the concrete edge sidewalk where it only gets sun till 1. Well, yeah, but it's by the concrete edge. That's
right.
Radiant heat and stuff. It wants good dose of cool sun. Kind you drink your coffee on the back deck, low angle 8 a.m. sun. It wants
that
a
is
good
me
dose.
as a plant. You diagnosed that well.
Yeah. You sir are lobelia and I am purslane, which is portulaca for
portulaca. It's call it where I come from.
So that plant does best with a good dose of light, but not hot midday.
Right.
And there's a host of plants like that. The one plant, impatience, is always kind of on the bubble. I grow mine in the full sun. Well, given proper, appropriate water and nutrition, it actually will perform quite well in the sun. The reason it's noted to be a shade plant is because that's where it gives the least problems to the grower. If you're in the full sun, you need to kind of handle it the right way. It needs to be properly, thoroughly watered and fed well. It does best if it's pinched when it's put in to make a low carpet instead of a rambling. When you start getting, the further you start getting that growing point from its water source, think about it, the more highway that phloem and that xylem, there's your other one, the xylem and phloem are the difference between food source movement and water source movement in a plant. If you want to get into the botany, those are the cells that move them. So the longer that highway is, the harder the transportation is for it to get to the other end, and then you're just going to see heat stress. So I like to take impatiens and pinch them so they stay closer to the ground, less disease. They look better because the carpet of flower is more carpet instead of a little bit scragglier and open, and it's easier to maintain your water because the water gets through the canopy of the bloom and foliage to the soil, a much easier route, and it doesn't need to move that water from the soil to a 2-foot long plant, more like an 8-inch long plant.
Right.
So there's a whole host of things that if you maintain them properly, the heat is not going to be an issue. If you have, I'm going to do the quick turn. It's so important for me, and I'll use the word passionate, that folks get good education. That's why we've done the show for a decade. Is that if you really fail in a bed or in a window box or in a hanging basket repeatedly year after year, it's my fault. My meaning the industry as a whole. It's a garden center's job. And, I'll be a little slanderous. It's generally not something done well by the box stores. They're kind of pumping material out there, not with backing it up.
Moving product.
And the good independent garden centers are here to educate you so that when you buy something and you invest your hard-earned money, which is becoming harder to earn and going less distance these days. If you have a bed that you say, I put impatiens in every year and they look horrible by the end of July, then I'm going to say, then you need Vinca rosa. It's basically like the sun thriving impatient looking plant. Well, I never heard of that. What's that? Well, you do this, and you water it way less than you did with your impatiens. It'll tolerate drought. Impatiens won't. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, now all of a sudden you're a gardener for life because now you have this harsh environment bed that you thrive in. And like, I can grow anything kind of mentality.
Right.
So it's our job to get out to you to make sure that what you spend your hard-earned money on performs well. And all that typically is assessing what you're looking at. By the concrete, direct hot sun, and learning how to water appropriately, which is my first go-to, my knee-jerk with troubleshooting a bed or a gardener's struggles is to ask questions about water because it's usually where it starts. Like, I water that bed 3 times a day. Well, that's Vinca rosa. It likes it dry. Oh, problem solved.
Well, I mean, if someone fed me 3 donuts 3 times a day, would I be healthy? Within a month, I would probably be very unhealthy.
No, you look healthy to me.
Well, that's because it's 2 donuts 3 times a day.
So
I cut back.
We've done this show long
enough. But it really is true. I mean, you talk about like a spoiled teenager is one thing, but also if you you're overwatering overfeeding things, they don't wind up healthy. It goes for people and plants.
Our grower, I tease our grower a lot. If he listens to the show, which I doubt it.
No, but the podcast. The podcast.
He'll say all the time, he'll be like, everything in moderation.
Yes.
I'm like, that's true. So donut is a good analogy. I'm going to hit up Father's Day. Happy Father's Day. I couldn't be happier being a father. I have a great kid.
I
said
know.
The reason I was here.
You are proud of your kid. I know that.
The reason I said I was here on time is she was just so darn good this morning. Like, it's that she's
awesome.
2. She's not that good every day, but all week she's just been phenomenal. And I've gotten here plenty early because she basically, which I know people are going to call me a liar, but I'm telling you it was true. Come on, baby bear, we need to get dressed. Okay, Dada. Walks
there you
in
go.
And opens her drawer and says, let's wear this today. Okay,
nice
good
when
to
that
go.
happens.
She was perfect today, so I was here early. But my what do they call it? Not my paperwork, my housekeeping. My housekeeping for as far as Father's Day is Happy Father's Day to everybody out there. It's truly a blessing, and it's a blast to do at whatever age you're at. I know if you have a 15-year-old girl, it's probably different than a 15-month-old girl, but we are celebrating Father's Day with generally. Dads, I think, really enjoy the edibles. They want to see a blueberry plant.
Sure.
They want their kids to go out there and be able to pick the blueberries and say, "Hey, Dad, I planted that blueberry bush."
Yep.
So all the edible fruit trees and bushes, anything out in the nursery, the raspberries, the currants, the blackberries, the fruit trees, all that is 25% off for Friday. That's today.
That's pretty great.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And all the herbs and vegetable packs, pots, everything. I mean, if you want a pot of basil and whatever, we have.
You got the lemongrass, I know that.
Yeah, lemongrass. We still have some lemongrass. We have a huge eclectic selection of all the herbs, and it always seems like the one that we drop the ball on is the one that everybody wants that year. So,
don't you have? Didn't I see Vietnamese basil? I think you've got a really great selection of herbs.
Oh yeah, basil. We have like 5 different basils.
5 varieties, yes.
Did I say 45% off?
I don't think you did.
No, I don't.
I thought you said 25%.
I said 25% off. Yeah. I think Bob was sniffing the basil.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I text while I do the show. It's like constant evolution. So he just lost his weekend fishing trip.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Text back, Bob. It's an interesting dynamic we have of being able to text live on the radio and so all the edible fruit trees and shrubs in the nursery, blackberries, raspberries, fruit trees, all that's 25% off.
Yes,
25% off.
25%. That's 1/4. That's a quarter. Yes.
Wow. Brains and brawn. So then we go to I deleted the Bob text. Bob's our GM for those that have no idea what I'm talking about. Vegetables in the greenhouse and the herbs in the pots indoors. So whether you're talking about tomatoes, peppers, zucchini, eggplant, whatever's left, and it's not too late. Like
No.
when my dad does a lot of gardening, we have like I don't know what it is, 5/8 of an acre fenced in from the deer and such. Most of that stuff he doesn't even start until June 1st.
Right.
I mean, that's just a couple weeks ago.
Absolutely.
You still have plenty of time. And if you kind of look back the last couple of years, whether you want to call this climate change or not, I don't know. But September and October are like my favorite months. You know, I
Very
remember
true.
when I was a kid, it would commonly have snow in October, and the Octobers have been like my favorite months.
Totally.
The best casual weather. So it is not too late to put your vegetables in by any stretch.
That's right.
So the edible 3-packs and pots and the herbs in the pots, those are on sale as well this weekend. That's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. They're all 50% off. So,
yeah, that's all good stuff.
So half off. So we still have summer hours right now, but I'm going to bring that up as well as far as our housekeeping. We are going to be open 8 to 8, Friday 8 on Saturday and 9 to 6 on Sunday. But Monday, we're going to go back to that 9 to 6 shift. We're
Okay.
going to narrow it down a little bit. That's not to say that's the end of it all, because we are still fully stocked. I just walked some folks that I know from the New York industry, Independent Garden Center. They're more of a wholesale grower. And that was their input when they walked through Stan's East. We're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Still quite a display.
Yeah.
Like, not saying excessive, because we did that on purpose. We wanted stuff to be on the shelf. We don't want the place to be empty in June.
Right.
You know, there's plenty of material to choose from in the greenhouse in color and in vegetables. There's still lots of vegetables left, so this is not the end of the bottom of the barrel, if you will.
Or you could be like my mom and have your entire order together and then say, oh, can you go back out and pick up that piece of statuary? I want that too.
Yeah.
Because
So-
that's there too.
Keep in mind, as the July starts to get nearer, because July is coming here, as July gets nearer, that's loyalty loot redemption. That's when
right.
a lot of the stuff that you've been investing in your garden, every time you spend $10 and you have your loyalty loot program. So you give us your phone number. We keep track of your input into our family business, and we've had a great year again. We appreciate all the gardeners out there. I know that dollars and cents are getting tough, but investing in your outdoor living and your living space, we certainly appreciate.
That's what it's all about.
And we put a lot into making sure we have a lot of material available. So without you, the gardener, and the customer supporting our still family business, we can't continue to keep growing if you don't keep planting. So we do appreciate the business. It's been a great season so far. Everybody's had a lot of fun this year, I think. And the where was I going with? Oh, the July is loyalty loot. Every time you give us your phone number, and it goes on your account, so we can take a look. If you had an issue with the fountain, we can look at which one it was or something like that. Every time you spend $10, you get a loyalty point put on our system. Those points are redeemed for up to 50% of your purchase at the time in July and November. So if you have accrued over the years and you paid really no attention to, because a lot of people don't like, oh yeah, my phone number is XYZ, and then over the years you say, hey, how much loyalty do I have? Whoa, well, you've saved $300 in loyalty loot. You can come in and buy a $600 fountain and use your points. You can pay only half of that price.
Yeah.
So it's like
Good
cash
stuff.
in July and August, or July and November.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Stan's Garden Center. Josh, thank you so much as always, sir.
Thank you.
All right, you want to do it again next Friday?
Can you stop rubbing on that suntan lotion on your head while I'm still here? Can
You
wait
know
till I
that's
leave?
sunscreen. Look at me. Do you think it's lotion? Do you think anything is enhanced by
Yeah, well,
whiteness?
just wait till I leave. That's just creepy.
Well, even with these windows, some light does get through.
You can't see nothing through these windows. Someone needs to walk by the Boston store. You cannot see Alan's head through these windows.
Yeah, that might be for the better.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Alan.
Josh.
We'll do it again next